Have you noticed your husband pulling away lately? Maybe he's quieter, more focused on work, or just doesn't seem as present with you. That truly can hurt, right? It can feel lonely, hurtful, and put questions in your mind, send you thinking about things that you probably didn't want to think about. But what if I told you there are simple 10-minute fixes that can bring you close without long talks or added pressure? And so today I'm going to share with you three practical tips that you can use right now to feel more connected with your husband, even if he feels distant. Trust me on this, it's easier than you think. Or let me just say, instead of saying it's easier, it's simpler. It's simpler than you think. Now, if this is your first time on this channel, I want to say welcome. I'm Kingsley Grant, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. And what you'll hear from me is partly from my almost 2 decades of professional work with spouses like you, and from my own marriage of 39 years of as of this video recording. As you can imagine, I've had my share of ups and downs in our marriage. I must give credit to God for his grace and mercy because believe me, had it not been for God's grace and mercy, I don't know. I don't know if I could be sitting here and telling you what I'm sharing with you today about this video, but also that we've been around for 39 years of marriage and counting. We're getting closer to the 40-year mark. And I'm so thankful to God for that because we've had our ups and downs, as I mentioned. We've had our tough spots in our marriage. And I'll share more about that as we unpack this video. Now, at the end of this video, I have a free gift for you, 5 proven steps to a happier marriage guide. And you could fast forward to this video, which I know sometimes people do. So I want to let you know you could and get that information on how to secure your copy. But I want to assure you that listening and watching this video will make you appreciate the guide a whole lot better. So, what are the 3 practical steps that could really help you to feel reconnected with your husband? And here's the thing. What I find that what I'm sharing with you is how to do this while you're maintaining your peace and your joy. Because we've got to guard our hearts, right? The Bible speaks about that. Because guard your heart, because out of it flows the issues of life. So what I'm suggesting here is how to do that while still maintaining a heart of peace, a heart of joy in the process. Well, I want to tell you the first step I want to talk about is this. Start with a small act of kindness, a small act of kindness. Why does that work? When your husband feels distant, and I wanted to assure you that I'm speaking as a husband myself and as someone who may be like your husband, who's an entrepreneur, someone who's truly trying to build out a business alongside whatever else he's doing. And so at times when we're so headstrong and so, we're deep into our work, we just lose track of time sometimes, or we feel the burden and the urgency. And a number of those things are happening. And I don't know exactly what's happening with your husband, but if he's anything like me, what I'm sharing with you is probably what he's feeling. And sometimes we just don't communicate it as we should. I am guilty of that. And I would imagine your husband may also be guilty of that. We what gets in our way sometimes is pride and our ego. We want to get to the place where we can surprise you as a husband. So your husband, like me, sometimes is dealing with stress, the burden of the business, the burden of the family, the unspoken. Maybe he doesn't hear you say this, but he feels like he needs to be providing, and it's an unspoken expectation that's there. Exhaustion, or even feel like he's not doing enough for you. I can tell you firsthand that sometimes, I've told my wife at different times that I feel sometimes guilty that I'm taking time away, but I also feel guilty that I'm not providing enough for what I believe she's deserving after almost 40 years of putting up with me. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. And I think I want to reward her for that. And sometimes I'm so much into that that I lose track of time, but also of my need to be there for her. Right. So a small gesture, unexpected gesture can soften that wall. As an example, maybe it's just sending a text message to say thinking about you, or uh, it's maybe old school, but a sticky note. And maybe sometimes these old school things are what it breaks things up because it's not the expected. A sticky note with a kind message like thinking of you. Maybe it's bring him a cup of coffee or his favorite snack while he's in his man cave, while he's working away at the business. You might be thinking, well, why would I want to reward him for that? Because he's the one who's keeping the distance from me. So if I went in and do that, then am I not kind of creating where he doesn't feel responsible? No, no, no. It's a whole different story, as you'll hear more about that in this video. Um, because I can tell you sometimes in my office here where I'm recording this video right now. Sometimes I'm locked away. My wife may walk in if the door is not closed because I'm recording something. If I had the door open and I'm working on maybe putting this notes together and trying to work on this outline, and she may walk in and put her hand on my shoulder or come, and sometimes one of her habits is to scratch my head. I don't have much hair on my head, but she's scratching away, finding something to connect. Or she may bring me a cup of coffee or tea or just something that, hey, honey, here, have some of this. Now, I'm the one who is probably distant because I'm working so much away, but she comes in anyway. You know what that does? It just tells me that she is not mad at me. It tells me that she is not somehow having something against me or making me feel as if I'm doing something wrong. And sometimes your husband just needs something like that. And I believe that by you initiating and being proactive, because I believe that you get more of what you want by doing some of the things you're hoping to get. The Bible speaks about this idea of what you sow, you'll reap. And I know most times we hear that in a negative context, but there's also a positive side to that. Sow more of what you want to reap. Sow more love and get more love. Sow more these moments and get more of that. Proverbs 15, verse 1, it speaks about something very interesting about conflict avoidance, but I think that the context can be also applicable here, where it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So when my wife comes into my office, it's almost like a gentle answer, a gentle response. It's not just the words that are being said, it's a nonverbal communication. And that nonverbal can be a gentle way that turns away any feelings of hostility or animosity or of tension. It softens the tension in the room. It brings down the temperature. But a harsh word, if there's a banging outside the door or just a walking back and forth and there's something going on and I'm sitting here. If my wife was to do that, I'm thinking, what's happening? Is that a message? Because sometimes you can hear that in the way that the steps are being made, right? You can hear that come, and you say, oh, wait a minute. I guess he's upset. And you're gonna be, here's how we are thinking. And I'm telling you what your husband might be thinking. If he's hearing this kind of commotion going on, he's wondering what's happening. And in his first thought, I guess she's mad at me or upset about something. What did I do wrong? Those are the things that goes through our mind. So a little kindness goes a long way. So the first step is start with a small act of kindness. The second step is create a distraction-free moment together. Now, we as men often open up during activities more so than when we're cornered for a serious talk. One of the things I can tell you, your husband, if he's anything like me, and the many, many men I've spoken to and husbands, what what we dread is hear these words. We need to talk. our mind goes into, what did I do? What did she find? And I'm not saying we are doing something wrong, but our mind goes in a crazy way of thinking and this tension. And so when we hear this, we need to talk. Or do you have a few minutes to talk? And the way it's presented, we feel like we're in trouble. So we are not necessarily going to be warm in wanting to sit down and talk about things like that. But when we're doing things like, if my wife and I went for a walk and we're just talking organically, different things come up. And I find when we're walking side to side, it opens up an opportunity to have shared conversations about different things. And it's not like we're cornered, right? So it's without distractions, and it gives space for organic connection. Like I mentioned, it could be a short evening walk that you could set up aside. I was one of my clients one time was telling me about what she did was invited her husband for a sneak getaway to get on the porch and outside and sit down and just talk for a few minutes or go for a short walk. And if you haven't listened to my podcast, Build Your Happier Marriage podcast, I talk about this very idea, and I expanded on this, what this wife did. You may want to listen to that podcast, but simply is just really go for a walk and having a conversation. And where no devices are allowed. You're not on your phone. It's amazing sometimes to see couples walking side by side and both of them are on their phones. Or you go out for a public place for dinner and you see couples sitting across from each other and they're on their phones and they eat every bite and then they're on their phones, they're biting under. It's amazing to watch. I mean, for me as as a coach and as a therapist, I tend to do people watching a lot. You ask my wife, and she will say, "What are you thinking now?" I'm making up stories about things I'm seeing, and I'm in my mind thinking, "Okay, body language is saying this and saying that," and I'm busy in my mind making up those stories. And I'll just tell her, we'll just laugh about it. Not laugh at people, but laugh at the stories I come up with in my head. But those minutes just aside, no devices, no pressure, just being present is really very helpful. So I mentioned before, I guess, a wife that I mentioned, how she asked her husband for, the sneak away time, right? Just to join her for a cup of coffee or tea, if you're into tea drinking. Then you may want to do something like that. The small routine, like those things, it brings proximity. It brings you closer and more intimate without any deep conversation at first. And you're surprised sometimes you get into deep conversation without even planning them. It's unplanned, it's unscheduled, it's spontaneous, and nothing beats that. Step number three is using I notice statements. I notice statements. I cannot tell you how important this is and the power of this. Instead of saying, why are you so distant? What happens there? It creates immediately a defensive mechanism because we feel like we're being criticized or we're being attacked. You may have heard that from your husband. I hear many men talk about this idea that more so than their wives, they feel attacked by their wives. And it could be what's being said, how it's being said, when it's being said, where it's being said. All those things are important. So instead of saying something like, why are you so distant? And, again, that's not a soft answer that turns away wrath that we read earlier and I mentioned earlier. You could try saying something like, and I notice you've been quiet lately. And I'm curious to know what has led to that. Now, when I teach couples about talking this way, one of the pushback I get sometimes is, we don't talk that way. We don't talk that way. I said, well, I said, could it be that because you don't talk this way, why you're having these issues? I'm not saying you ought to say it verbatim exactly the way I'm saying it, but if some variance of this is necessary, I notice you state the fact, not what you are, what you've assumed, not what you've concluded, is what it is you're saying. Is your witness to a story. I notice you've been quiet lately. That's what you can see and talk about. And you're now curious to know what has led to that. Your husband, if he hears that, was more apt to want to interact and give you a feedback because now you open it. This is an open we call about close-ended or open-ended. This is an open-ended question that allows him to speak more freely. And you're not leading him into what to say. You're not speculating. You're not saying, is it this or is it that? No, none of that. It's just, I notice. This opens a door without sounding, um, like you're accusing him of something. In James 1, verse 19, the Bible says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. See, listening slow like this doesn't mean that it's not like you're counting every word he's saying. No, no. It's just really be more present, be more active in your listening. It shows that you care. And I'm sure you want that from your husband as well. But I'm speaking to you. Remember now, I'm on your side. What I'm sharing with you is to help you better understand your husband. This Martian, this from men are from Mars, right? This Martian is help you to better understand this Martian. Because when you can better understand him, and who's better to hear from than a man, but also a husband, and also an entrepreneurial type husband. Because if that's who your husband is, that's why you're listening to this and watching this video, then I would think you would somehow want to hear from a person who's on the inside, right? I want you to have a successful marriage. I want you to be happier in your marriage. I want you to feel better, deeper connected. I want you to just be more peaceful in your marriage. I want those things for you. And that's why I'm taking the time to share with you. And sometimes I may sound a bit, like one-sided, or somehow you may be thinking like I'm speaking like a typical man. No, no. I want for you to be successful. Please understand, trust my heart in this, because I believe that's what God wants for you as well. I know, not believe, I know that's what God wants for you as well. And see me like me as a messenger sharing that with you. So when you are doing this, I notice statement, keep it light, avoid pressuring him to talk. If he says, well, what has led me to this way you're seeing? I'm even trying to figure that out myself. Accept that. Don't push beyond and say, oh, what else is going on? Or there must be something. There must be something. No, please keep it light. Avoid pressuring him. Sometimes just letting him know you're paying attention is enough. You notice is enough. That it might be all you need to do. So these three, I believe, I would say 10-minute kind of activities or actions can truly make a difference in your marriage. As I said before, number one, start with a small act of kindness. Number two, create a distraction-free moment together. And number three is to use I notice statements. I would love to hear which of these resonated more with you. Which of these spoke more to your heart, that you felt more, you lean more towards. Let me know in the comment section below. And by the way, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, would you go ahead and subscribe right now and smash that thumbs up button to say, hey, you know what? I'm with you on this. But if you are just to subscribe and to make a comment below, I would really appreciate that. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe and you don't miss any of the videos that come out on this channel, because I'm really I'm working on something really very, I think, very important, and you're gonna find it very useful even beyond this right here, that you're gonna have just by subscribing. You'll be notified when those videos come out. Now, so here's what I want you to wrap this up with by saying feeling disconnected doesn't mean your marriage is falling apart. I know you can start catastrophizing and thinking the worst case scenario, this marriage is ending, we are separating, and your brain can build up all this scenario like that. No, no, it doesn't mean it's falling apart. It's just a signal to be intentional. It's a signal to do the three things I described above, right? And so if you start with these 10-minute fixes, just see what difference they make in your marriage. So here's the thing. Your spouse, your husband deserves to feel valued, acknowledged, recognized, and so do you. And so do you. I want to make sure I put that in, because I do believe you also deserve that. But when we follow God's design for marriage, our marriage has a much better chance of experiencing peace, deeper connection, and happiness. And as I hope you're hearing from what you've heard me share so far. So if what you've heard today resonated, makes sense, appealed to you, you will want to grab the free practical roadmap or the guide I mentioned above, 5 proven steps to a stronger, happier marriage. And you can go to buildyourhappiermarriage.com/guide, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/guide or /roadmap. You may have heard me mention roadmap in the past. That will get you to the same space, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/roadmap. And that link will be below inside the description that follows this video. And Psalm 127 is a great psalm to remind us as we kind of to take us out here, where the Bible says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. So with God's help, the journey can be so much richer. And these things that I've suggested today will be much more easier to do. So thanks for joining me today on Building Happier Marriages. And join me next time as we continue exploring ways to strengthen your relationship, your marriage, so you too can have a long lasting, happier, peaceful, joyful marriage. May the Lord bless you and give you his peace now and always. And make sure you watch this video, right here, this one right here. Make sure you watch that and share that as well as this one with one other person. So take care. God bless you. And I'll see you on the next video as we continue to unpack ways that you can build a peaceful, happier, and longer lasting marriage. God bless. Peace out.